Hi, and thank you for watching Targeted West, TargetedWest.com. This is DJ Chris, the V2K Call and Book Club. We're a peaceful group that gets together every week on Sunday to talk about issues about targeting, gang stalking, directed energy weapons, V2K, the voice of God weapon, remote neuromonitoring, and all that stuff. So February 99. Mike, but until then, we'll have open mic. So welcome to the call. Anyway, Charlie, as you were saying, yeah, that they don't want to talk about that type of thing on those conservative shows. They just want to talk about the mainstream crap.
Yeah, no doubt. Well, they want to talk about what's in the headlines, basically. Yeah, but it's the same thing. They have the terror watch list, but they never get into. No one ever asks, what is the terror watch list? What are you doing to watch these people, right? What is the terror watch list, basically? And no one ever talks about that, right? The mainstream media doesn't talk about it, right? And nor anyone else, right?
Yeah, that's true, Anthony. What do you think?
Well, mainstream media isn't talking about it, but some channels on YouTube I've seen are talking about activists that are activists against the ICE operation. They are what I'm getting feedback, but what's happening is that they're being told that they're being placed on a terrorist watch database, and their pictures are being taken. In fact, they're being approached by name and everything. The activists that are following around ICE. So it's out there already that there's a terrorist watch list, and these activists are being placed on it. And the ICE maintains some kind of watch list, but they deny maintaining any type of watch list.
That's wild. They deny the whole thing, just like they have for years with lists that they've had. Even the president's had lists.
Hey, DJ Chris, how you doing?
Oh, there you are, Ben. Let me put this person on mute. Okay, there you are. Ben's here. Ben's a internet Substack writer, and has a call every Thursday at, I believe, 4 p.m. Pacific. And it's great to have you on, Ben. How you doing?
Thank you. I'm all right. I'm hanging in there. Things are. I mean, you know how it is. It's always pretty rough, but staying strong and just working on my latest article, kind of talking about I'd say the effects of, like, the synergistic effects of stuff they put in the food supply, stuff like xylitol, or even well, I mean, I was really thinking about xylitol a lot, because this is an ingredient that I found that was in something I was using called Zyn pouches, because I was trying to quit smoking. And I found out that this is a chemical that opens up the blood-brain barrier and allows for nanotech and other, heavy metals to basically go right into your central nervous system. So I was just...
I didn't know that. That's crazy.
Yeah, it's just kind of coming out now. I mean, it had lots of other... I mean, back in, like, 1978, they did research on xylitol, when they were trying to, kind of pass it through as a safe artificial sweetener. And they were like, oh, yeah, it causes cancer, and it causes bladder stones, and it damages your liver. And they were like, all right, send it through. We don't care. But now recent studies have shown that it opens up your blood-brain barrier. It basically interferes with the cell function of your, I think they're called endothelials, the stuff that basically the cell functions along the, this porous structure that is basically like a filter for blood going into your brain to protect you from toxins, and this stuff just opens it up and allows for all sorts of stuff to get in there, not just nanotech, but also just damaging compounds that are just all throughout our beautiful country now, and in our food supply, like glyphosates, which is in my new article. Glyphosates are a huge problem.
What's your Substack location we can share on the recording?
Oh yeah. Let me go ahead and I'll post it in the chat here. It's just my name, Benjamin Canine. Targeted individuals against RF-based weapons, but I'll post it in here for you guys. Copy link. There we go. But yeah, I found that the stress of all this stuff. I just really I like to get immersed in research to kind of distract myself from it, and then it also makes me feel better because I'm helping other people with the stuff that I've learned.
Gotcha. For their listeners, it's benjaminconine.substack.com. Okay, go ahead then.
Yeah. I'm looking at the chat. The guy says xylitol helps the brain. No, xylitol does not help the brain. Xylitol is
bad.
Yeah, xylitol is very bad, and it's in a lot of stuff. It's in everything from energy drinks to chewing gum, toothpaste, nicotine pouches. It's in a billion different things because they figured out back in the late 70s, early 80s, this is a great way to poison people, especially people that are health conscious. And that was kind of a big like what's going on with this whole program is they're basically going after the poor and middle class, like the most intelligent and the most moral, and they're basically trying to poison, kill, and brain damage them to get them under the control of this parasitic ruling class, like the New World Order types. And they're trying to poison the hell out of you. I mean, that is the basis of it. And it started.
Is this just in the United States or all over the world? I know other countries don't have the same standards as we do.
The United States is the worst. We're the hub. We're kind of the center of it. But we basically, after World War II, we took over most of Europe. I mean, like to an extent. I mean, Europe still remained autonomous in some kind of ways, but we absorbed most of their large companies, including one of the worst companies ever, which is Bayer. Bayer, which later became Monsanto. I mean, the United States is the we're kind of the center. We're the vortex of the beginning of the targeting program, and this is kind of the New World Order's headquarters, especially the coasts, the East Coast and West Coast, California, Washington D.C., New York, and Massachusetts. Those are the beating hearts of the New World Order empire, and that is where the most targeted individuals are, and that's not a coincidence. But
yeah, I'm in California, and there's a lot of targeted individuals here.
I meet one every other day. Yeah, I get people contacting me. I put up my personal number for people to talk to me because I know that they want to isolate targeted individuals. And, I put up my personal number to people I meet on Substack, on Quora, many different platforms. And I'd say probably a quarter of them are from California, although I've met people from India, Japan, the Philippines, Canada, all over the place. But California is it's a ridiculous amount of TIs because that was kind of the beginning of the targeting program. It was basically the Department of Defense the CIA working with the Department of Defense to try to get a stranglehold over mass media and trying to control Hollywood. And they really implemented a lot of the stuff that they learned from Project Monarch and the MKUltra programs in order to make basically, mind control celebrities, and really kind of, I would say, created a giant human trafficking like empire, which basically, what we're seeing now with the the whole Epstein file revelations and seeing how deep this goes with just Epstein, because Epstein he's just a regional manager of one part of the eastern coast of the United States. So there are many networks that are the size of Epstein's or larger and more brutal all throughout the United States. I would say, the West Coast. We have no idea who's running the West Coast ring. We have no idea who's running the Southwest. It seems as though Canada has its own ring. And these are basically kind of split up into, in my mind, I just got the thought of principalities, basically just, these kind of zones of different organized crime rackets working with the CIA, the Department of Defense, and I shouldn't just say the CIA. It gets more complicated than that. We're talking the CIA and Mossad. They're kind of the top two intelligence agencies that are driving this program. They were the first to, discover and refine mind control technology on a psychological level, and then they had access. Once they did that, they basically infiltrated the Department of Defense, U.S. Air Force, and they used the same stuff that Epstein was using, a lot of pedophilia, honeypotting, and blackmailing, in order to start up organizations to get all the information and all the secrets out of the Department of Defense and U.S. Air Force. And then the CIA and Mossad basically had free reign controlling all this stuff, and they could even set up private entities or criminal organizations with this technology to do whatever bidding that they want, and started contracting them out and working with them and coming up with deals, allowing for people like the Epstein ring and Ghislaine Maxwell, they were using this technology in order for facilitating the trafficking of children and teenage girls in order to get control over politicians all over the country and the world. We're finding out, and it's no coincidence that in the Epstein files we're seeing now that he had a whole email that was tracking different target individuals and what was going on with them, and he was interested in it, and he was doing lots of research into schizophrenia and things like that, which is very odd. Why is this guy who's just a human trafficker, and money launderer for everything from the mega group, to working with Mossad and CIA for blackmail purposes. Why was this guy interested in schizophrenia research? And I think that links in entirely with the targeting program, because this is kind of the basis of it. And when you see some of the people coming forward that were victims of Epstein and how they act and talk, these people have been psychologically shattered, I think, and mind controlled in ways. One interview I saw with Chris Hansen, this woman from South Africa that Epstein had assaulted and trafficked. She woke up in a laboratory at one point, she's saying. She woke up in a laboratory in Arizona after, being trafficked by Epstein. And when Chris Hansen asked, what happened to you in the laboratory? And she goes, I don't know. I have no idea. I just woke up and there were doctors around me, and I'm not sure what happened. And if I knew, then they would have killed me. And that's why I'm alive today. And she's pulling at her hair and looking around, and she's describing being targeted. She's saying that people are still following her in South Africa. They're slashing her tires. They're sabotaging her vehicle. They're tapping her phone. All the same things that targeted individuals and or people complaining of gang stalking. It's all the same thing we're talking about. And all this stuff is connected. It's all connected to this vast network of a brutal, I hate calling it the New World Order because it sounds like, it sounds too good for them. But this.
Believe it or not, Marco Rubio used that exact term when he was in Germany.
Oh, you referred to them as a New World Order?
He referred to the United States and the world as a new world order now.
Oh yeah, yeah, and he's a classic example of a compromised individual. I mean, he was it seems as though he was a bisexual man who was like going to gay nightclubs and dancing, and they had they basically got blackmail on him, and then he became controlled, and yeah, so yeah, I mean that's basically most of politicians. The majority of politicians are blackmailed with either having an affair on their wife, or for having some type of homosexual relationship, or from being dragged into some type of pedophilia ring, which is what Epstein was doing. I mean, Epstein was given the largest mansion in New York City by the head of Mega Group, who was the owner of Victoria's Secret. He was gifted this gigantic mansion, and when everything went down, they went into this mansion and they found the entire place, all these bedrooms were wired for sound and video, and none of the recordings were ever discovered by the FBI, coincidentally. But this was basically a large honeypot blackmail setup, and they were basically setting people up with 15-year-old girls or younger, or maybe boys, and then having it on tape, and then they could control them completely. And that is how this government is run. I mean, many governments, England, America, Germany.
Hoover did it back in the 40s and 50s in the Blue Lodge or Blue Room at the Plaza Hotel, and he would blackmail people with bringing in young men and such from Indiana.
Yeah, exactly. And this was something that was kind of pioneered or brought into the mainstream of the OSS or CIA with their affiliation with the Italian mafia, who were used to setting people up with prostitutes and then blackmailing them, saying that we're gonna tell your wife, and then it evolved over time into blackmailing over homosexuality, and then when that didn't have a bite of enough of a bite, it switched over to the pedophilia angle, because nobody's gonna go along with that. I mean, you can come out and say that you had an affair with your wife and apologize, or or admit that you're bisexual or something, and you had a tryst with a man. But as far as getting caught, being with somebody that's underage, that is a premium blackmail that nobody can avoid, and that is how this country is run now. And what they're doing is they're using what they've learned with Project Monarch and MK Ultra to basically scramble the minds of children, using the same technology that targeted individuals are subject to. So they have set up vast networks of just like we saw with Epstein. What's coming out with him? He's setting up basically baby farms. He's setting up, finding compromised young women that he could traffic, get them alone, scramble their minds, traumatize them, start using this MK Ultra trauma-based mind control technique to get control over them, along with, I think, technological, neuroscience techniques that I write about in my Substack, that are all classified. And any neuroscientist will argue until they're blue in the face, that it hasn't been done yet. But guess what? DARPA and the CIA are they're decades ahead of regular neuroscience research. So they set up these young girls, and just like Epstein is showing in these files, he's farming babies. I mean, there was one of these women who was heartbreaking. She's talking about how multiple babies she was forced to have. All she got to see was them when she delivered them, and then they disappeared, and they have no idea what happened to them. So there are networks out there basically creating mind-controlled, child sex slaves for their own purposes, but more importantly, when it comes to how the country is run, to blackmail and control politicians, and a lot of them are controlled that way. But then beyond that, we have some politicians that are they're targeted, and a great example is Biden. Biden is a prime example of somebody who was basically brain damaged and completely neurologically compromised, and then programmed, and then he just was like a puppet, walking around doing whatever whatever these people wanted to. I mean, it seems as though he was compromised. It seemed like there was some kind of pedophilia angle with him, but I mean, overall, I mean, do you see how Biden walked around? The guy was like, he was literally like a puppet. It was crazy. But I got off on a tangent. I'm sorry. I was dealing with a lot before I got on the call here. For some reason, whenever I go to do an interview or anything like that, my wife starts up some kind of argument and really gives me an earful. But
I'm sorry to hear that. Again, my computer. I had a computer problem today, so I understand hectic days.
Yeah.
She's probably being controlled remotely.
Yeah, I mean that is definitely something that I'm thinking, but living in Massachusetts here, I have to be extremely careful about everything that I say, especially when I do a public call like this, because they have gone after targeted individuals here by using the mental health medical system, whatever you want to call it, their protocols, and they actively basically use people's loved ones in order to throw them into mental wards and force medicate them. And I already experienced it once. It was horrific. And yeah, so I have to be very careful. Any mention of V2K, any mention of if you talk like you have a persecutory complex or anything like this, then you can be, I mean, literally just handcuffed and dragged away, and they can lock you up and force medicate you with brain damaging pharmaceuticals, and take you away from your loved ones, and you don't know if they're safe or not. So it's you got to be careful here. And right before I got targeted, we had a chapter or whatever you want to call it, a support group of targeted individuals that would meet in person, and they were all disbanded. Everybody disappeared. I can't find any of those people. I talked to a number of different TIs, including Frank Allen, who's here in Massachusetts, and it seems as though a lot of these people just went dark, and they won't I cannot contact them. The TIs that I have found here in Massachusetts have mostly been literally driven insane. I mean, and they're horrified. I met 3 different individuals in person, that had V2K and were targeted. And when I started talking to them about this, because I was excited to actually find somebody in real life I could talk to that experienced this stuff, they basically they looked like they were just horrified. And
Ben, I'm here.
Sorry, what?
I'm here, Ben.
Derek you're from Mass?
Huh? We
it's
talked
Derek.
to.
Yeah,
hey,
how
Derek.
you doing? Yeah. How you doing?
Yeah, I got my video cam on. I could tell when the fire department is watching me through the windows because they shut off all.
Yeah, well, I mean, again, man, I love you, but a lot of that stuff, where you think, a fire department is watching you.
Go ahead.
A lot of what is happening to you, a lot of what is happening to you, it's a remote manipulation. It's a neuromodulation that's happening via RF frequencies to cause extreme, paranoia, which, I don't blame anybody for being paranoid in this program. That's a pretty normal reaction, but they enhance it. They really amplify it, and they can supplant thoughts, and really make you believe things that aren't necessarily happening. Which whenever I tell people that, it's offensive, and they get mad at me. But it's something to consider, because in my research and my own personal experience early on being targeted, I could see that they were basically manipulating the pattern recognition parts of your brain. They're manipulating instinctual your survival instincts in order to isolate you and to try to make you sound crazy because you're trying to figure out what's going on. You're trying to figure out what's going on and come up with an explanation because it's very complicated and I would say the vast majority of targeted individuals have no reason to be targeted. You're not on a terrorist watch list. You didn't do anything. You're just a good, normal person that has a strong moral compass and is probably an objective thinker. And they've instituted a large-scale, I would say, experimental program in order to refine this mass mind control technology to go after people that don't go along with the normal mass mind control system they have set up. So now they're refining it and going after people, different neurotypes, and especially religious people, in order to crack down on that and figure out how to control that segment of the population, so that in the future they don't have anybody popping up and causing resistance. That seems to be the aim of this targeting program and gang stalking program. Just like with COINTELPRO from the FBI, how they go after protesters and I would say political agitators. Now they've gotten down to such a point where they've gotten rid of that, and they're going after just individuals that might just think like, hey, I don't like pedophilia, or hey, I think that I like Jesus Christ and I like helping other people, and they're like, all right, get this guy. Let's figure out how his mind works. Let's figure out how we can change his mind. Let's figure out how we can break him, and split up his family and make sure that they don't procreate. That's kind of like what's going on with this whole thing. But I talk to targeted people all the time, saying, the fire department is parked outside my house, but I mean, even when I looked at your camera there, I mean, all I saw, it just looked like an empty road with some lights out there, So I mean, I don't know, I love you, Derek, but you have to, at a certain point, we all have to hold ourselves accountable. And I've been where you've been at, where I thought, I mean, I had V2K early on in this, like screaming into my head, like, the police are at your door and there's a search warrant, and I'm running around looking out my windows, like, search warrant for what? What the hell did I do? Why are they after me? And normally, if anybody told you that, and you're just, you're not doing anything, you just.
But you have to admit that there is a link between the first responders, healthcare 4.0, and all of us targets report something about the fire department or some first responders harassment or following us around. So I don't discount Derek in absolutely the least. I believe every single word that he's saying, and I don't believe that he's in one bit paranoid about nothing. And I know, I'm pretty sure.
There's a middle ground. There's a middle ground. I understand exactly what you're saying.
I'll tell you one time. I'm going to tell you one thing real quick. One time I got a piece of cotton ball stuck in my ear, way deep in my ear, and I was jumping around when I was trying to get it out. I couldn't get it out, and I started having a really bad panic attack. I was crying and everything. So I got to the ER, and I'll tell you what, that ER was completely packed. And I had calmed down by then, but somebody had called ahead of time and told them to take me in first. But that ER was completely packed, and they took me in. You know how they do your vitals and everything? And they took me right into the back, and I was already calmed down because I was at the hospital and I knew I was going to get fixed. Well, they took me to the back room, and they took that cotton ball right out of my ear, lickety-split. Now, if you try to convince me that this isn't related to anything medical or medical,
no, that's not what I'm saying.
You're wrong, and he's experiencing the same thing that a lot of us are experiencing.
Listen. I know exactly what you're talking about, and I write about it in my Substack that one of the first things they did was capture the medical industrial complex, whatever you want to refer to it as, the medical system, and they set up protocols in place so that if anybody came forward talking about what was happening to them, that they would be admitted. And beyond that, we are dealing with an actual mass mind control system. and I have dealt with it when I got, when they put me into a mental ward. I mean, I just had a noise complaint called on me, and when the police showed up, I was just like, oh, sorry, make noise, and they busted into my house. They broke into my house. They grabbed me. They threw me against the wall. They handcuffed me and dragged me onto the lawn, and they immediately said, are you hearing voices? And I was like, no, I'm good. And I was totally calm because I knew what was trying to be done. And and they didn't care. And they put me in the back of a cruiser. They closed all the windows up. It was sweltering in there. And then they just told me that I'm going to a hospital. And they ended up just bringing me to a hospital. There was no evaluation, no mental evaluation. And the police talked to the nurses there for a little bit. And then they came over and they force injected me with a sedative and knocked me out for 12 hours straight. And when I woke up, I just said, like, I want to talk to a lawyer, like, what's happening? And they said, oh, you're being sectioned due to mental health. And I said, all right, well, can I talk to a lawyer? Why am I being sectioned for mental health? I'm 38 years old. I've never had a mental problem. Why is this happening? And they said, oh, I don't know. And no one would answer anything. And then they dragged me off to a mental facility, and they put me in there for 2 weeks. A doctor talked to me for 3 minutes and said, oh, you have bipolar disorder and with psychotic tendencies. And I was like, well, why? What's your basis for the diagnosis? And he's like, oh, well, your wife said that you were staying up late, and you were, she heard you talking to yourself. And so just by her saying that, I was basically force medicated in a psych ward for over 2 weeks, where they tried to keep me for longer. But thankfully, I talked to another patient there, and he said, "Oh, you have to go to them and try to sign. You have to sign a paper for discharge, and then once you do that, then they'll start the process of getting you out of here." If that patient hadn't told me that, I would have been stuck in there for a month or two, God knows how long, until I figured out that I had to do that. So yeah, I mean, the medical system is set up to destroy targeted individuals like us. I totally agree with you, and you're not going to get any help from any of the first responders. The whole protocol is set up to make you look crazy, and then they are set up. Some of them I think are in the know, but most of them I think are just kind of, they're just trained to think that you are mentally ill. But I know from my experience that this program tries to push a lot of paranoid. I mean, it's not really delusion, but it is. And when I hear people that are basically held up in their house, they're terrified, they're isolated, they won't talk to anybody because they think everybody's involved. I just try to talk to them in an objective way and say, like, well, why do you think that? Is there anybody really outside your house? Are you being scared on purpose to be held up in your house and nervous and afraid to talk to anybody? Are they trying to isolate you? Are they trying to create a sustained response of fear and anxiety in order to control you more? And these are things that we have to consider, because it is both. It is both things. They've captured these systems, the police, the medical system, all that stuff. I mean, the FBI has a joke. The DHS the DHS and ICE are part of large human trafficking networks that now we can see. I mean, you can tell they have total control now, because now they're just sending out ICE and they're just literally killing people in the street. They're attacking people. I mean, they're just kidnapping kids off the street, and nobody ever sees them again. We hear stories of women being raped in these ICE facilities. This is definitely this is a government-run program that all these institutions have been captured and controlled, and they're being made to be as brutal and evil as possible. So that is happening.
You know that ICE is, for a fact, is doing this?
Oh yeah, they are.
How do you know that?
Well, ICE has they not only have facilities set up all over this country, and now they're buying up old warehouses, and they're buying up old buildings, and they're setting up detention facilities that are basically like.
I'm gonna call you back tomorrow by this.
Okay.
Sorry. So yeah, ICE is setting up basically black sites all over the United States. They're buying up old buildings and setting up detention facilities, and they have been implicated with a number of human trafficking cases. There was a few different cases where detainees are saying that they were raped in these ICE facilities by ICE agents. And only a couple of them have actually been, prosecuted for it at this point. But it is ICE is also, they are active in, they have facilities set up in, I think, about 18 or 20 different countries. They're not just in America. So they're taking people from this country that are marginalized and isolated already from their families because they came here illegally. And then they are abducting them, and these people are disappearing to God knows where. And yeah, it's part of a larger network of human traffickers, which seem to be primarily focused on children. Because that is the highest value for human traffickers.
I just don't know how someone knows this information because it's
tirelessly researching. In fact, there's a great point is because a lot of the information that I give my research and my sources on my Substack because I have a lot to think about. I can't just rattle off my sources as I'm talking about stuff. But maybe the next article that I do will be on the DHS and ICE because when this happened to me, I contacted Department of Homeland Security because I knew personally with people I was associated with before I was targeted of a corrupt DHS agent. An associate of mine that I worked with, he met him out in Las Vegas, and this guy was throwing around $100 bill tips at like $5 blackjack tables. And when my friend talked to him, he was like, "Wow, you must be doing really well." He's like, "What do you do?" He goes, I'm a DHS agent. I rob drug dealers. I could just take whatever I want from them. So I got a ton of money. And when I got targeted, my V2K, as they were torturing me, they said that they were affiliated with DHS. They said they were affiliated with Mossad.
Yeah, but your V2K told you that?
V2K was saying that, which is
but V2K tells
usually a lie. It's usually a lie
everything.
whenever they say that. But
that's called perception management. They want you to believe that they could have been the Crips and the Bloods down the street.
Yeah, they told me there were like 10 different entities.
Realistically, if they're using classified technology and telecommunication infrastructure and U.S. Air Force infrastructure, it's probably not the Bloods and the Crips. Is what I'm going. And when they did all that, which is probably a lie. I mean, they're probably just some type of human trafficking organization or a criminal organization that's making money off of human experimentation, working tangentially with the CIA or Mossad or Department of Defense. I did a bunch of research on DHS and ICE, and I found that these people are crooked as shit. And I still I didn't believe the V2K, and I put in a bunch of tips, and I sent tips and calls to DHS specifically, and I said, hey, there are people using remote neural monitoring on me, and I can see that they're connected with the Stoughton police here, which they just got in a bunch of trouble, and the Epstein files just showed that Epstein was funding a program for police to ride around with children called the Explorer Program, where one of the children ended up getting pregnant by a Stoughton police officer, and the Stoughton police officer murdered her, and they tried to cover it up. And after about a year, the parents, they came up with so much evidence, the FBI came in and finally arrested one of the Stoughton police officers. But then when I did more research into it, and this is where I was heavily targeted with Stoughton, Mass. And when I did more research into it, I found that there were multiple pedophile police officers in Stoughton, Mass. So there's a network here that Epstein himself came to Stoughton, Mass. multiple times. It showed in his, if you look at his bank statements, when he was using his debit card there were multiple uses of his debit card in Stoughton, Massachusetts. And him and Ghislaine Maxwell were funding the Explorer Police Program, where a police officer, and it looks like several police officers, started having sexual relations with a 15-year-old girl that was part of this Explorer program, and she ended up getting pregnant and then murdered.
Have you heard anything about this? Have you heard anything about this Catherine Guthrie's mother getting kidnapped? Well, Catherine Guthrie. I found out today that she was pressing really hard for the Epstein files to be released. Now, they're claiming that the reason that her mother got kidnapped was because of that. Now, the Epstein, she was clawing too much into wanting to release those Epstein files, and look at what happened to her mom. So if you're investigating a lot deeply into something like that, or wanting something to be released, then something horrible just might happen.
Yeah, well, I mean that's why I was targeted, was because I was already doing I was a big researcher. All I would do is go home and research these type of things, and yeah, I was doing a lot of research on what happened with COVID, as far as the government and DoD connections to it, and more importantly, the use of, I mean, basically like the American power structure. We have started using Israel as like a front man scapegoat, because Israel has kind of like a 1-2 package of one of the most brutal and underhanded intelligence organizations, which is Mossad. But they also have a very, very entrenched organized crime network that goes throughout Europe and America, and including, and that links in again with the Epstein thing. And so I was writing a lot about that stuff shortly before I was targeted, and I always thought that targeted individuals were like insane people, and I didn't believe in any of it. I thought that they were mentally ill people suffering from schizophrenia, and then I started getting gang stalked, followed, all my devices hacked, and then they started trying to make me believe that my neighbors were doing it. They tried to get me to go and like attack my neighbors. I wouldn't do that, and I got moved between several different apartments, and then ended up in Stoughton, Mass, where that's when they like went ham on me and started with full-on V2K, just torturing me, just dudes talking into my head with voice changers 24/7, keeping me up late at night. And then eventually sending a corrupt Stoughton police department to break into my house and forcibly throw me into a mental ward. So yeah, I mean that's what happens in this country. They've already captured they've got the media controlled, independent media. They've got a pretty good handle on social media platforms. They got a good handle on. So now they're down to the level of just a dude that was posting like crap on like a little Discord to a couple people of like, hey, I think that this is that, and being a little too accurate with it, and then all of a sudden I'm getting targeted, and I had no idea why, and they try. I mean, initially, this is another thing why I tell people you can't really trust, once you're targeted, you can't really trust a lot of your thoughts and feelings, because they use this remote neuromodulation technology, which seems to be driven, I think that is driven with the nanotech. I think that's what they're at now, is they're using basically this graphene oxide self-assembling nanostructures that build up in your bloodstream, and then there's different vectors for opening up your blood-brain barrier. Everything from Wi-Fi, which opens up and damages your blood-brain barrier, to stuff like xylitol, different stuff in your food. There's a lot of different ways to open up that blood-brain barrier and allow for these graphene oxide and reduced graphene oxide nanoparticles to build up in your brain, your central nervous system. And once they're in there, the inflammation caused by, I think that I think the target individuals are usually set up to live in places where they can be hit with a extreme version of EMF. Like, you're basically set up to live in an apartment complex, or somebody sometimes moves in next to you, and then they hit you basically with some type of more or less like a Vercator microwave type thing, or there's something wired into your house or set up in your house that basically causes a certain amount of brain damage and inflammation. And what happens then is that the nanotech, this graphene oxide or reduced graphene oxide, which interacts with other stuff once it's in your bloodstream, like just normal stuff that you eat can actually cause reactions with reduced graphene oxide to cause silver nanoparticles to attach to it, and it becomes highly conductive. Once that stuff is in your brain and you have inflammation in your brain and damage, this swelling that happens. I saw like Dr. Richard Lighthouse posting pictures of his face being all swollen up from this stuff. That inflammation causes hydrogels to be made in your brain, basically like a healing function that's going on. And when those nanoparticles get into these hydrogels, it creates like a microchip. Like it's basically like that these nanotech, graphene oxide nanostructures become incorporated into the outside of your brain, and they basically heal into your brain, and it turns your brain into an antenna. And that seems to be kind of what's going on, because
they spray over here, during the growing season for food, and I wouldn't doubt that they're spraying with nanochemicals and technologies.
Yeah, that's what the whole chemtrail phenomena is. They did studies over in France. There was a team in France that did a good job collecting chemtrail, the stuff from chemtrails, and they found crazy stuff in there. Not just graphene oxide, nanotubes and structures, but they also found like genetically modified spider silk, in order to make the chemtrails float off the ground so that they never settled onto the ground. Because basically once all this stuff is mixed together with surfactants, it's like micronized aluminum, graphene oxide, and this weird genetically modified spider silk. It just floats around in the air, and you end up breathing it in. And apparently with the chemtrails, it's not a very high absorption rate into the human body, because it has to basically collect in your mucus, and then you swallow it, it goes in your gastrointestinal tract, and then it has to go into your bloodstream from there, and then it has to pass the blood-brain barrier to get up into your brain. So the absorption rate, for the final, nanotech is like really small. It's like 1% that actually gets into your brain, and that's when they started the whole COVID operation. That's what COVID was about. They basically released this lab-made COVID. They released like all 6 variants or 7 variants all at the same time across the world, and then they introduced this Department of Defense designed mRNA vaccine, which they, in different batches, they had large amounts of graphene oxide, nanotech in it. In fact, Japan actually caught one of the only countries that discovered one of the batches they got from Moderna. There was 1.63 million doses, and they found in all of those doses that there was like this black particulate sludge all in it, and they rejected it, and they said, no, we're not going to take this. And then after that, they found another batch that was the same way. And it seems like they were randomizing batches of the vaccine to have large amounts of this nanotech, so that they could present one batch and go, look, check out the batch, it's fine, we're not putting anything in it. And then the next batch they would send through that normally would not be tested, but in Japan, pharmacists were actually looking at the vaccines themselves, because the Japanese are just like awesome. And like even the pharmacists were like, all right, let me check out this vaccine batch under a microscope, and they found that it was all contaminated and brought it to the authorities. But they were doing that all over the world because the chemtrail was not effective. They couldn't get enough nanotech into people, so they started this campaign with COVID to basically inject people, and you can see how well it works, because the states in this country that are the most vaccine positive, like COVID vaccine positive, they're the most crazy. They've all lost their mind now, because this was like a big part of this mind control program.
And my clinic convinced me and someone in my house to get shots, and I wish we didn't.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, that was a big part of it. And if you did get the shot, I'll be releasing my latest article where I talk about how to things that help with these like vectors of attack that they used. But yeah, like bromelain. What I've been taking is bromelain, natokinase, and a few other things, because this nanotechnology, it has a side effect, which we saw with a lot of people after the COVID vaccinations, was it causes extreme blood clots. Because what they're trying to do is this nanotech wants to glob together. Basically globs together. It causes these like fibrous blood clots as a side effect. And you have to, if you did get that vaccine, especially, you have to take stuff to make sure that you're breaking up those blood clots, because it's a twofold approach. It's not just introducing nanotech into people, but it's damaging their brain and their body. And little microclots that build up in your brain, they won't necessarily make you have a full-on ischemic stroke or an embolism, but they can do it on the small scale, like small little strokes, and basically clog up your circulation to your brain, and diminish your brain function in order to make outside influence for mind control technology more effective.
Well, let me take a little break for a moment and talk about the TI Book Club. This book was seen on Joe Rogan and Tucker Carlson. Lies My Government Told Me by Robert Malone, MD, and it just so happens to cover what you're talking about, Ben. So check that out. That's in the book club right now. We have 228 members standing in good standing. If you'd like to join the book club, go to bookclubs.com/TI-book-club/join. Thank you. Back to you, Ben.
Yeah. So, it's a multi-level approach. I mean, if we have anybody that has any questions, I really love. I mean, I get off rambling like this, and I feel like sometimes it's how it is after you've been tortured for a couple of years. I mean, a lot of you guys have been tortured for more than a couple of years, but it's like your mind. It's hard to stay on topic on things. I'd love to hear any questions. If anybody's got any questions, that'd be great.
Be a good time for questions for Ben. If you have a question, come on in.
I did.
Go ahead. Come on in.
Hi. I would like to know, what was the name of the forum?
Sorry, got cut off. What did you say?
What was the name of the form in the mental institution that you had to fill out to get out?
To be honest, they had me doped up like you wouldn't believe. I literally just went up after this guy told me, which he was just like a normal guy, and I was like, "Why are you in here?" And he was like, "I don't know." But when I went up to the front desk, I was like, I need the form for discharge. I need the form for discharge, and they were like, "Oh yeah, all right, here you go." And they just gave me a form, and I signed it. And then they're like, all right, in 3 days, 3 business days, we'll set you up to have like a discharge meeting and set up like, how you're going to be taken care of and if you're going to get treatment, that blah, 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 So it wasn't like a specific, I don't know what the name of the form was. I mean, when I went in there, it was just set up. Like, even when I met that doctor, he talked to me for like literally 3 minutes. He told me I was bipolar, and I was like,
Big Tree Pride was murdered.
What's up? Okay. But yeah, when I met up with that doctor, and he gave me that diagnosis, I said, well, I don't agree. And he said, well, if you don't agree, then you might be stuck here longer, and it'd be easier for you if you sign off voluntarily on being here. And I was so freaked out on being there, I was like, all right, so if I sign this and say I'm here voluntarily, like I'll get out sooner? Like, how soon are we talking? How long will it take? And he's like, well, there's no way to really know, but, things will be easier for you if you take the medication and you sign off on being here voluntarily. And I was just so like scared, and I was so worried about my wife being alone, because I knew what was happening in Stoughton with all this like mind control and human trafficking crap happening, and that it was definitely forced to be separated from my wife for a reason. I just signed off on it, and now like I have to battle through the court systems to get like this ridiculous false mental health diagnosis taken off my record, which is just like they just think I suddenly became a bipolar at age 38, which doesn't match any of the DSM-5 classifications for that. Does not, you don't just suddenly become bipolar. Like I'm just a normal kind of nerdy dude who like to read and research stuff, and was always gainfully employed with no criminal record. And suddenly they could just pin that on me. But that seems to be, for a lot of TAs I talk to, they want to pin a mental health diagnosis on you or get you into the criminal justice system in order to discredit you. So if so either you're too scared to go forward.
And they put you in the other thing is the medical justice system, the Epic Health Systems, which is a worldwide database. They put you in there with your forced medical diagnosis that they put on you.
Yeah, exactly.
And you may not be able to get a job because of it.
Yeah.
They give you the mental health diagnosis to take away your gun rights.
Yeah.
And they do, yes, Steve, that's correct.
Yeah. I mean, I think they prefer the mental health diagnosis because they can sidestep your constitutional rights way more easily than any type of criminal charge. Although early on, my V2K desperately tried to get me to like attack people. They tried to claim that my neighbors were sexually assaulting my wife, and they were doing like weird racial angles where they were like trying to make me say like racial slurs and trying to make me think that black people were doing it and Jewish people were doing it, and any time I saw a black person, my V2K was like, yeah, that guy, yeah, he's right there, you're a pussy if you don't do anything. And I was just like, what the fuck? I ignored it, but I think that what they prefer is a mental health diagnosis, because then they can take away your ability to own a gun, and they can sidestep any legal rights, because the bar for incarcerating you for mental health reasons is so low, especially in Massachusetts, Florida, and California, that it's way better for them, because now it's like they can lock you up, force medicate you, and on paper, when you try to go forward and talk about what's going on, people go, oh, well, you're crazy. Look, it's right here on your record. You're diagnosed as being mentally ill. So that's what they're going for most of the time. And that's, these, I mean, and it is many different, it's not just the medical, like mental health system, but also the rehab facilities they have set up all over the place. They're purposefully getting people addicted to drugs and then sending them to these rehab facilities that seem to be set up in the same type of a way. And a lot of the targeted individuals I talked to, they were introduced to especially amphetamines or fentanyl or crystal meth initially, and then they were hit with targeting and V2K.
That's what happened to me. Yeah, I had a relapse. Yeah, that's what happened. The meth. I found so many people I've talked to that had the meth relapse or meth in their lives that have had the telepathy happen.
Yeah.
The interrogations and
it's perfect.
Yeah.
Chris and I are neighbors too.
Yeah. When you look at it, it's perfect, plausible deniability. Immediately people go, well, you were on drugs, and then on top of that, the real sneaky thing is that they can dose those drugs. They can give you
no credibility. Yeah.
They can set you up. They can set you up with a dealer who is mind controlled or maybe in on it. Maybe he's an actual perp gang stalker.
Yep.
And he can give you a batch of crystal meth with God knows what kind of brain damaging chemicals in it, or other
nano. Could have nano or tracking in it.
I mean,
yes.
I don't think because of the delivery system of it, the way that you would ingest it, unless you were maybe snorting it, then nano would make sense. But I think a lot of times all they have to do is basically put in brain damaging compounds, which then once they damage parts of your brain, you become way more susceptible to their trickery or neuromodulation, mind control technology, because you're just,
could be possible.
Yeah.
And they've
yeah,
even
Miss Hall.
yeah, they've even infiltrated Alcoholics Anonymous and Narcotics Anonymous because they were definitely part of that when I was going through the recovery.
Yeah, yeah. The people that set this stuff up. I mean, initially you have to look at it the way that MK Ultra worked. They immediately started working with organized crime, setting up. I mean, they were using prostitutes and prisoners mostly for their mind control experiments, and they were using drugs. And so the organizations that worked with the CIA and the Department of Defense for this research, they created a network of people that were used to getting people hooked on drugs to exploit them. And this evolved into a larger system where they could basically create whole populations. And I mean, obviously, you got to look at the CIA's involvement with bringing in drugs since the 1960s. I mean, the CIA first started with the Vietnam War, bringing in heroin from the Golden Triangle over in Laos and Vietnam. Then they evolved to bringing in cocaine from Colombia and Bolivia and El Salvador, and then now we're at a point where the CIA and God knows what kind of entities are working with China and cartels to bring in fentanyl and methamphetamine because they can be produced more cheaply and they're more damaging to people's brains and bodies. So it's a multi-tiered approach, and it's all meant to degrade the civilian population as much as possible. And it's obviously it's set up. I mean we're literally looking at a parasitic ruling class that is trying to destroy families, destroy lives, destroy your mind, degrade your body, make you compromised, make you lose sight of the most important things. And one of the easiest ways for them to do that is to offer or bring in these type of drugs and get people addicted to them.
I agree. Does anyone else have a question for Ben? It's Targeted West. Ben is here. He's a moderator every Thursday, and he's got a Substack article. Hi, come on in. What's up?
Hi, thank you. Yes, thanks for your show as usual. And I wanted to know, did you mention, Ben, xylitol as being a problem chemical, which is in food products? Could you tell us about that?
Yeah, xylitol. So yeah, xylitol is a really, really important thing to understand. Basically, you have to look at, they've set up a system now where they have set up certain compounds to be fast-tracked by the FDA that didn't make any sense. And a lot of them are artificial sweeteners. So aspartame, sucralose, and xylitol are the top three. And right away, when they did the studies, I know xylitol was 1978, they did the studies and they were like, yeah, this gives you cancer. Xylitol gives you cancer, it causes bladder stones, it damages your liver. All right, we found that out just with our first study. And I think that the FDA, when they did their study on xylitol, they only had 6 participants in the study, in the human testing study, and 3 of the participants had heart palpitations. And the FDA is owned by the pharmaceutical industry and this parasitic New World Order, whatever you want to call them, ruling class. So they said, yep, sounds good. Xylitol is approved. And now the recent studies, which makes more sense to me, why it's in everything, is that it opens up your blood-brain barrier. It basically, the cells that are, I forget what they're called, like, I forget the term for them right now, but the cells that are basically on that control your blood-brain barrier, when xylitol is introduced, because xylitol is actually like a naturally occurring compound in your body, but you're basically introducing this like naturally occurring compound at a large amount, and it basically confuses the cells in your blood-brain barrier, and they just open up the gates, and they allow for normally like a fine, a defense network, like a screen or a filter, that keeps out poison. It just opens it up and it lets anything through. And if you look at what they're doing with nanotech, that makes perfect sense why they would want to promote anything like that. So xylitol, sucralose. That's why they like people to smoke. Smoke cigarettes. A lot of TIs I talk to. In fact, when I got targeted and they hit me really hard, I got this idea in my head like I should just start smoking because I'm a dead man. Like these people are going to kill me. Whatever. I didn't smoke until I was 38. I'll just start smoking now because why not? Like I'm going to be dead any day now. And I started smoking cigarettes. And then I found out anytime you smoke a cigarette or a lot of the drugs out there too. Another reason why they introduce drugs is when you freebase anything, which when you smoke a cigarette that's freebasing, it opens up your blood-brain barrier and it allows anything in your bloodstream to pass up into your brain. So there's many different ways to do it, but one of the big things they're trying to do is to damage and open up your blood-brain barrier. And also Bluetooth and Wi-Fi also open up or damage your blood-brain barrier. So never use Bluetooth headphones, never use Bluetooth headsets. It basically, that frequency, that 2.4 megahertz frequency causes at the very least, it causes a temporary opening of your blood-brain barrier and allows for anything in your bloodstream to get into your brain. And once it's in there, it's very hard to get out.
Thank you for your question. Anyone else have a question for Ben before we end the recording?
I think it was interesting that you brought up about smoking and how that opens the blood barrier. I am trying to quit smoking, and I would like to do a program for TIs that are wanting to quit smoking.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome because what I figured out with all this is the same way that you can use hypnosis to make people stop smoking cigarettes, these people can use remote.
Thank you for that. Tonight, but
It's all broken up.
Yeah, you're all broken up. I thought it was me. I think they're hitting
we'll go ahead and end this.
signal.
We'll go ahead and end this. What's that?
Chris, you were all broken up.
Oh, was I cutting out?
Yeah.
Okay, let me try again. Thank you for watching on your favorite platform. Thank you, Ben. We're going to end the recording on your favorite platform. Please like, subscribe, and make a comment.